There really was no other place I wanted to go.
Born and raised in Iowa, and my grandpa was a Hawkeye, and I always wanted to be like him.
I've always been a big fan of Iowa Hawkeye football.
Iowa has the best fans in the world, sports or just the university in general.
I came here for the energy, I came here for the spirit, and I definitely stayed for the people.
I would say that the Hawkeye community is uplifting. It takes you under its wing and launches you up.
There is an avenue and a person for everything at this university. Whatever you need, someone's there to help you.
So many of the faculty have so much real-world experience that they can share.
Being able to work with them and learn from them has been an awesome experience.
Feeling that resilience that the student body develops throughout the year, supporting one another, the highs and lows, I just feel so embraced and loved.
The most valuable thing I've learned at Iowa is perseverance, how to try again, get up when you fall.
When you get a classroom full of people from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, you learn that there's a ton of different ways to approach a single problem.
My biggest takeaway is to not shy from new experiences.
I learned how to say yes, and that has opened me up to make a lot of connections and to really grow into the pharmacist I have become thus far.
I would like to thank my parents for their unwavering support for these last 8 years, my husband for being a great study buddy during those long study sessions in dental school.
I want to thank my wife, Bree, and my family who have supported me every step of the way.
My friends and my neighbors, and especially my running partners who have heard about my dissertation for the past 10 years.
My fiance has basically been there for me through all of pharmacy school, and he's seen the ups and downs and the successes and the areas of improvement, and so he's been my rock, and I'm really thankful.
Friends, family, and loved ones of these fabulous students, please give a hand to the Iowa Law Class of 2025. Students, soon to be graduates, please be seated. Well, good afternoon and welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Pettis. I have the honor of serving as the interim dean of this wonderful, really terrific law school. And today we celebrate the academic achievements of a really outstanding group of law students. Today we will graduate students earning the Juris Doctor, Doctor of Juridical Science, and Master of Law degrees. For today's program, I'm joined on the platform by today's commencement speaker, the Honorable Michael Malloy, Iowa Law Class of 1974, our elected class speaker, Stephen Odiobola, our wonderful university president, Barbara Wilson, who has the most important assignment of the day, conferring the degrees that the members of this class have earned, and of course, my colleagues, the exceptional faculty of the College of Law. On behalf of our community, I especially welcome our most honored guests, the loved ones of today's graduates. Thank you for encouraging these students through good times and bad. Thank you for helping them keep their heads up when the going got tough. Thank you for helping them celebrate the many victories when things went well. And thank you for helping them keep a wise perspective on what is and is not truly important in life. Without your unwavering support, these graduates might not have reached this happy day of celebration. Graduates, please join me in thanking your family and friends for their support. It's now my pleasure to introduce our student speaker, Stephen Odiobola. Stephen is from Lagos, Nigeria. He graduated from the University of Lagos with a Bachelor of Laws in 2018 and was admitted to the Nigerian bar in 2019. He practiced transactional law for 3 years before coming to Iowa Law in 2022. At Iowa Law, he was the director of the Midwest Black Law Student Association, and he served as managing editor for the Iowa Law Review. In his 2L year, Stephen took the New York bar exam, not an easy exam, and passed. Following graduation, Stephen will be working as an associate at the Colwell Law Group in Syracuse, New York. Stephen's family is in Nigeria and couldn't be here to join us for today's ceremony, but they're having a watch party right now, watching us live in Nigeria, where it is 6 hours later. To Stephen's family who are watching, let me say that we are so proud of him, we love him, and we're so grateful to you for sharing him with us. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Distinguished faculty, family and friends, my fellow students, congratulations. We did it. And what a journey this has been. For many of us, the journey to this place was unexpected. If you had told me 4 years ago that I would be standing here, graduating with a degree from one of the best institutions in America, I would have laughed in disbelief. You see, I come from a city called Lagos, Nigeria, 6,300 miles away from Iowa. And my parents did not go to college. No member of my family went to law school. So although I was taught the value of hard work and determination, I never dreamed that I would be standing here on this podium. So 3 years ago, when I walked into the Iowa Law Building, I knew that I worked hard to be there, but I wasn't so sure. Many of us seated here, we've thought to ourselves, do I belong here? Am I worth it? But look at us now. Law school is hard. Let's face it. Yeah, it's hard. And the way the grading curve is structured sometimes makes us feel like we're in a competition. And many times, it felt like all of us could not win. But even in that competition, we found compassion, we found friendship, we found solidarity, and some of us even found love. So, we've been through a lot in our time here in Iowa, but somehow we're able to band together and bring that friendship, that solidarity, and that compassion that are values of Iowa law. Now, in our time here, there's been so much that has happened. Sometimes we've been here where on a group me chat, someone sends a message asking for someone to babysit their dog. Other times, people have asked and banded together during exams. At other times, we've also helped each other. We've precluded sleep to teach each other issue preclusion and claims preclusion. So we've embodied the spirit of Iowa law, of excellence, of solidarity, of inclusion. And in our time at Iowa Law, we've had to answer hard questions. Sometimes those questions meant answering whether the rule against perpetuities wipes out an executory interest. But other times, it involved asking and answering, what is the meaning of fairness? And so we've had to grapple with hard questions. And we didn't always agree. You should see our con law classes. But one thing we did was that we engaged each other with respect and with tolerance. And so when I think of us going out into the world as Iowa Law grads, I think of us answering those hard questions. Answering those questions with the technical knowledge that we've learned as lawyers, but also with the compassion of a human being. As we prepare to graduate, I've been having a lot of questions, an existential crisis, wondering what the future holds. I found myself Googling, will AI replace lawyers? What's the market like for lawyers? So these are tough questions that will be required to answer out there. But we can come away knowing that we've been given the skills to excel, and we've been given the determination to make a difference. So whether you're going out to a judge, to clerk, or you're going to a law firm, or whether you're studying a nonprofit, or whether, to be honest, you're just trying to pass the bar without losing all of your hair. I know about this. Let's go forward and know that we will not only be in the future, but we will shape the future. I leave you with the words of Nigerian chess player Tunde Onakoya. It is possible to make a difference from a small place. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you very much. I'm honored now to introduce our 2025 commencement speaker, the Honorable Michael Malloy. I'm proud to say that Judge Malloy is a graduate of the University of Iowa College of Law. He once sat in a room not unlike this one, wearing his graduation robe and wondering what his future might hold. Even then, when completing his Iowa law degree in 1974, he plainly was a star. He graduated with high distinction at magna cum laude honors. Before attending law school, he served our country in the United States Army from 1970 to 1972, eventful years for service in the American Armed Forces. After law school, Judge Malloy returned to his hometown of Dubuque, where he practiced law for more than a decade at the O'Connor and Thomas law firm. His practice spanned civil litigation, real estate, bankruptcy, administrative law, and tax law. During those years, he also was deeply involved in his community, serving a wide variety of civic and religious organizations. In 1986, Judge Malloy began his distinguished judicial career on the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Northern District of Iowa. He was appointed to the U.S. District Court by President George H.W. Bush in 1992, serving as Chief Judge and later chairing the Bankruptcy Committee of the Judicial Conference of the United States. In 2001, President George W. Bush, seeing the wisdom of his father, elevated him to the United States Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit, where he served with distinction until taking senior status in 2013. He fully retired just last year. Judge Malloy is the first judge in the history of the Eighth Circuit to have served as both a U.S. bankruptcy and U.S. District Court judge, an extraordinary testament to the breadth of his experience and his dedication to the judiciary. Judge Malloy also is a recipient of the Iowa Law Alumni Service Award, which honors past graduates who have made especially meaningful contributions to the College of Law, the university, and the world beyond. Now, we all know that graduation speeches come and go. If I asked you who spoke at your high school graduation, or maybe your college graduation, many of you might draw a momentary blank. The speeches themselves are often wonderful, but the distractions are many. We have graduates sitting in tightly packed rows, wearing unfamiliar robes and hats, with loved ones in town and assembled behind them. I've had a preview of Judge Malloy's remarks, and I can tell you that today's commencement speech is one that you will need to take to heart and carry with you when you leave. Please join me in welcoming back to Iowa Law the wonderful, the Honorable Michael Malloy.
Thank you, Dean Pettis, for that wonderful introduction. Although I don't know how I can follow the remarks of Stephen, that was a really magnificent speech you gave. President Wilson, Dean Pettis, faculty, friends and family of the graduating class, and most importantly, the members of the Iowa College of Law class of 2025. I appreciate the honor and privilege of providing a few remarks during this wonderful graduation ceremony. Customarily, any graduation speech starts with congratulations to the graduates, their family, friends, and others who have supported them through their law school career. While I do want to congratulate each of you, it seems congratulations is an inadequate word to acknowledge your accomplishment. It seems more appropriate to call you survivors. Most of the members of this class spent at least part of their undergraduate years in COVID lockdown, taking classes online, communicating on Zoom, and missing out on much of the social interaction of college life. You survived that experience and obviously did well enough to get admitted to law school and now are on the verge of graduation with a law degree. By the time you started law school, which for most of you was the fall of 2022, law school was back to some sense of normalcy. Hopefully you had a positive and generally uneventful 3 years at the law school. And as the second semester of your final year began, I'm sure that most of you were looking forward to your life after law school and new careers with law firms, clerking, prosecution and defense counsel, and other forms of government service. However, I can't help but think the past few months have been extremely unsettling, maybe even leading some to question your career choice. For some, it may even mean jobs you thought you had before graduation no longer exist. Fundamental to many of the concerns you may have is the challenge and attack on the rule of law, the very foundation of your law school career. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the rule of law and what, if anything, you as new lawyers can do to defend the rule of law. First, what do we mean by the rule of law? You've heard the term used almost daily in the news media, coming from all ends of the political spectrum. But what do we mean by that term? To me, the rule of law embraces two fundamental concepts that have been the bedrock of the United States societal structure for the past nearly 250 years. The first concept is an adherence to the Constitution of the United States, and in particular in our current environment, recognizing the separate branches of government and respecting and giving due deference to the role each branch plays in our governmental process. Just as judges are expected not to legislate, it is imperative that the legislative and executive branches recognize the role of the courts and faithfully adhere to and execute the judgments of our judicial branch. To the extent there is disagreement about the correctness of a judicial ruling, the recourse is through the appellate process, up to and including the Supreme Court, and not a refusal to obey the decisions of our federal and state courts. The second concept, in my view, is adherence to the fundamental rights and privileges embodied in the Bill of Rights. Due process is not a right to be recognized and utilized just when it is convenient and set aside when it takes time, costs too much, or is too burdensome. Freedom of speech is under attack from multiple directions, from telling colleges and universities what they can teach, to banning books, to threatening prosecution or civil litigation over newspaper editorials, letters to the editor, Facebook posts, and comments at public forums. The freedom to criticize our government and its officials is what has separated the United States from totalitarian regimes, where freedom to even read about or discuss conduct of government officials is virtually non-existent. To me, this is not a liberal or conservative issue. We as lawyers, regardless of our political views, have an obligation to protect and promote civil discourse. We need to encourage the free exchange of ideas and be respectful and willing to listen to opposing views. I could go on and talk about other rights that I believe are under attack, but assuming you share my concern and believe the rule of law is worth fighting for, let me talk about what you as new lawyers can do to promote the rule of law. However, let me first say that I understand and appreciate the anxiety created by many of the policies that have been enacted over the past few months. Lawyers of my generation thought we had it tough 50 years ago when classes were canceled and schools closed over Vietnam War protests. However, I think the scope and swiftness of changes in the legal landscape over the past few months far surpassed the tumult that we experienced during the Vietnam era. Most of you are probably as distressed as I am over the attacks on law firms who are merely discharging their professional obligations, that is, representing their clients to the best of their abilities. You may also be disappointed in some of the actions taken by some of the firms, including those you may be joining as new associates in response to the attacks they have come under. However, I think it's important to keep in mind legal leaders have had to make very difficult decisions in an environment that, as I mentioned, is unprecedented. We may not always agree with the decisions and compromises that are made, and freedom of speech certainly gives us the right to criticize and second guess. But I think it's important to recognize that in almost all instances, leaders in law, business, and education are acting in good faith and doing what they believe is best for their institutions, employees, clients, and constituents. We may not always agree with the direction leaders have taken, but I think it is important to recognize the difficulty of the positions in which they have been put and recognize their good faith. So turning to what you as new lawyers can do to defend the rule of law. One way as a new lawyer is to get involved in the political process. It is vitally important that we have good people with your legal training and experience helping to shape the policies and laws that emanate from Congress, state legislatures, and local government. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to run for Congress, although that'd be great if you did. We also need more lawyers who appreciate the rule of law in our state legislatures. Chief Justice Christensen of the Iowa Supreme Court has been very vocal about her concern that there are so few lawyers in the Iowa legislature. Lawyer legislators hopefully appreciate the importance of our public defenders who defend our Sixth Amendment rights, recognize legislation that attacks our basic freedoms, such as freedom of speech, let educators and college officials teach and run their institutions, and generally appreciate the practical effect proposed legislation has on our system of justice. Likewise, service on city councils, boards of supervisors, school boards, and other local organizations can have a profound effect on supporting the rule of law. Many of the policies that most directly impact our daily lives and fundamental freedoms, such as what books can be circulated and read by local schools and libraries, are made at the local level. Balancing the freedom of speech against the protection of minors requires difficult decisions. Your expertise and legal training would make you an invaluable addition to those legislative bodies in addressing the difficult problems that come before them and protecting our fundamental freedoms. And if you don't feel you have the time or the inclination to serve yourself, please support those who are running for office and support the values you appreciate. Whether it is volunteering to campaign for a candidate or give a donation, your support of candidates who defend the rule of law can have a significant impact. Another way to defend the rule of law is to support organizations that are standing up for the rule of law. Personally, I've had some problems with the positions and advocacy of the American Bar Association over the years, but I do believe they are now stepping up to defend the rule of law. Likewise, the Iowa State Bar Association has been a strong advocate for Iowa lawyers and the rule of law. And I'm sure the bar associations in most of the states in which you will be practicing have taken similar positions. Those are the organizations standing up for and supporting lawyers and law firms that are being attacked for merely doing their job. Your support, whether it is financially or volunteering, will help those organizations and other civic and legal organizations supporting the rule of law stand fast in the face of criticism and even threats. You can also defend the rule of law by supporting the federal and state judiciary. Now, given my position, this may seem a little self-serving, but I do think it is important to speak up and support judges when they are attacked for making decisions that are not particularly popular. I believe this is especially true for the state judiciary. They do not have the life tenure that federal judges enjoy. It is important that lawyers try to educate their family, friends, and the public about the role of the judiciary and how sometimes unpopular decisions result from protecting our fundamental freedoms guaranteed by the Bill of Rights or impartially applying the laws the federal and state legislatures have enacted. Going back to my earlier point about serving in state legislatures and Congress, hopefully lawyers also have a better appreciation of the necessity to adequately fund our judiciary and pay judges an adequate salary. It is getting more and more difficult to recruit candidates for judicial positions. The lack of resources, inadequate pay, crushing workloads, together with the criticism and sometimes even threats to personal safety, make it more and more difficult to attract good candidates as judges. You as young lawyers can help address those issues by supporting the people who are on the bench, advocating for better pay and resources, and encouraging good people, including yourselves, to apply for judicial positions. Finally, be available to speak up and be a voice for the rule of law. You are uniquely qualified to explain to people why we just can't search someone's home without a warrant, why even offensive speech may be protected by the First Amendment, why undocumented aliens have rights, including due process, and why the rights of the accused are important, even to those who have never committed a crime in their life and believe they never will. Your education and expertise are vitally important to help educate people about the importance of upholding the Constitution and the importance of separation of powers. If asked or given an opportunity, please take the time to speak to students, civic organizations, and other groups about the importance of the rule of law in our society. In conclusion, let me just say, you as new lawyers do have a voice. You can be an advocate for the rule of law, and I have every confidence you will stand up for the rule of law as you go out into the legal world as new members of the bar. Again, let me congratulate you on your accomplishment. You are survivors. There are challenges ahead, not the least of which is the bar exam, but you will survive those challenges as well. I have every confidence you will be great lawyers and proud alumni of the University of Iowa College of Law. Thank you very much.
Well, that brings us to the business part of our program today. President Wilson, on behalf of the faculty of the College of Law, I'm proud to present the candidates before you. They have completed all the requirements for the degrees of Juris Doctor, Doctor of Juridical Science, and Master of Laws as designated. Members of the class of 2025, please rise and remain standing.
Thank you, Dean Pettis. By the authority vested in me by the Iowa Board of Regents, I hereby confer on each of you the degree of Juris Doctor, Doctor of Juridical Science, and Master of Laws, as qualified and designated. Congratulations. You may be seated.
President Wilson, thank you. We're now going to ask the graduates to come forward to be individually introduced by Professor Joe Yockey, who will read the names, and to receive their hoods from Dean Emily Hughes, Professor Allison Guernsey, and Professor Mary Kosobiak, all of whom were chosen by this graduating class for this ceremony. Usually we have 2 hooders. We had a tie, so we said, let's have 3 hooders. So it may be a little crowded, but it's all part of the love and the fun. So we're going to begin with the students earning the Juris Doctor or the Doctor of Juridical Science degrees, and then we'll conclude with the Master of Laws, Master of Studies in Law.
Elliot Abramite. Michael Acherkhan. Elona Ada. Habib Adekola. Nicholas Benjamin Alquist. Garrison Allen. Isaac Apple. Ejike Ralph Aruma. Taylor Ba. Katrina Barr. Colin Bivon. Siduri Beckman. Paul Brosnick. Ryan Breckner. Courtney Kaminzind. Donovan Cameron. Adam Cardoso. Geoffroy G. Castro. Yusuf Shamis. Fabio Zhao. Noah Chaplin. Ashley Ann Chipkopis. Tyler Cochran. West Connors. James Davis. Quentin T. DeCubellis. Sylvia Donato. Lauren Dubas. Blake Roger Edwards. Hunter Leigh Eigenman. Sean Endress. Kyle Daniel Rustad Estelle. Brennan Fairbairn. Caitlin Fairchild. Chandler Farquhar. Elise Clara Fenton. David Franco Mesa. Aaron Frith. Christian D. Fulmer. Jensen Gall. Alethea Gautier. Alexandra K. King Gilchrist. Kyle Glanzer. George Asef Goffis. Alec Troy Goose. Emma Gordon. Roya Green. Daniel Hackbarth. Andrew Joel Hamilton. Nora Catherine Harding. Joseph D. Heemstra. Ian Hegerly. Austin Henderson. Arisa Hishikawa. Alexander Hook. Jonathan Humston. Cameron Avery Hunter. Amos Imafidon. Tobias Itriago Vajanija. Jadat Jaber. Sean Jarvis. Amy Jo Johnson. Colin Andrew Johnson. Jane T. Josephowitz. Allison A. Kelly. Jackson King. Matthew Class. Ira Charles Kiyun. Esther Kumar. Tressa Lauer. Michael Lalui. Jonathan Alexander Llewellyn. Alex Lewis. Anna K. Lewis. Joseph Lim. Zishan Lin. Patricia Linninger. Benjamin Thomas MacArthur. Zachary James Manuel. Benjamin E. Marchant. Isaac Levin Marshall. Fotini Kaufman Marut. Audrey McKinney. Austin Ray McClellan. Mara McNamara. Sonia Mayra. Jonathan Melvin. Brandon Messmer. James Miller. Kevin Moore. David Morehart. Matthew Moreland. Joanne Mulholland. Megan A. Mullins. Rafeh Nadim. Stephen Odeogaborla. Linda Ogene Yerovo Ogedegba. Alex Orcarfor. Happiness N. Okereke. Ben Olson. Samuel Onwokwe. Ayo Opefa. Maitri Patel. Keegan Peters. Brendan Prohaska. Sean Quick. Adele J. Raymer. Cassidy Ray. Ian Reeves. Justin Rimpey. Matthew Richards. Tanya Rios. Anna Leah Roskamp McGuire. Madison Joe Rush. Stephen Science. Nicholas Solis. Michael Sheldrup. Jared Sherman. Rachel Schmidt. Vasily Skarakis. Zoe Shipley. Sophia Gilligan Schubach. Kathleen Ann A. Schwau. Zachary Sides. Isabella Siragusa. Shay Slifka. Adam Strathern. Matthew Swanson. Håkon Thorsgaard. Tu Tran. Kyle Vancil. Nathan William Vanderheiden. Tristan Texas Verghese. Jackson Bicknair. Jenna Vignovich. Sydney Wagner. Isabel Marie Wallace. Daisy Warner. Max Warshawski. Brittany Marie Weaver. Elise Antonia Weilbrenner. Jacob Wendell. Joshua William Wenty. Morgan White. Madison Grace Whitmer. Tyson Williams. Stephen M. Winston. Sarah M. Wright. Yang Yang. J. Jules Zaksek. Dan Nagabirano.
As they make their way back to their seats, why don't we fill the time with a round of applause for all of today's graduates. Thank you. Graduates, you've joined a new family today, a family of more than 10,000 Iowa Law alumni living throughout all 50 states and many countries beyond. Before you leave us, there are just a couple of quick things I want you to know about this new family, about where it comes from, and about the work that this family does. And don't worry, I'll keep it very short. In June of 1865, as I say that I think I'm backing up a ways, but we're going to get to the present day really fast, I promise. Just a little story I want to tell you about your family. In June of 1865, just 2 months after General Robert E. Lee surrendered his troops to General Ulysses Grant and signaled the imminent end of the Civil War, just 2 months after that, some important folks in Iowa were thinking about lawyers. The University of Iowa had been established 18 years earlier, but it didn't offer anything in the form of legal training. People who wanted to become lawyers either had to leave Iowa to attend a law school out east, or they had to apprentice with a local attorney. But urging smart young people to leave the state hardly seemed like a winning plan, and the apprenticeship system left a lot to be desired. Great attorneys were often too busy to teach, and bad attorneys were, well, they were bad attorneys. And so in June of 1865, Justice George Wright, a member of the Iowa Supreme Court, joined some of his colleagues on the bench in urging lawmakers and university leaders to create a new law department, as they called it, to train aspiring attorneys. It would be 3 years before the legislature would give the young university the money it needed to start offering law courses, but Justice Wright didn't sit around to wait. He had personal reasons to move more quickly. His son Thomas had fought for the Union in the Civil War, but then he had been captured by Confederate forces and imprisoned for several months in Georgia's notorious Andersonville prison camp. When Thomas finally made his way back to Iowa after the war's end, he arrived in broken health, but he was determined to start a new life. In late 1865, his father, Justice Wright, took matters into his own hands in much the same fiercely loving way that many of the parents here today might have if they'd been in his shoes. Justice Wright and one of his colleagues on the court, Justice Chester Cole, began teaching law to Thomas and another young man 3 nights a week in Justice Wright's Des Moines office. 10 more young people soon joined them for those evening sessions, and so the two justices went into business as what they called the, quote, Iowa Law School, charging $80 for a year of study at the first law school west of the Mississippi River. When the legislature came through with the money to start a law program here in Iowa City 3 years later, in 1868, the university brought George Wright and Chester Cole to town, right up the hill here, and negotiated a merger with the Iowa Law School, creating what later would be called the University of Iowa College of Law. They set up shop, as I say, just up the hill in the old Capitol building, that beautiful gold-domed landmark that sits at the heart of our campus today, and we've been training new lawyers in Iowa City ever since. Now, for me, that history is interesting in its own right, but there's one more small piece of the story that will bring me to the point, and the last point you're going to hear from any of us today. Justice Chester Cole left the university in 1875 due in part to a fight about his salary. He wanted $150 per week, which would have made him about the highest paid university employee. He wanted $150 per week, but the university wouldn't pay him more than $100 a week. But apparently it wasn't all about salary. Once back in Des Moines, Justice Cole published a piece in an Iowa newspaper publicly muttering that Iowa taxpayers shouldn't be helping to foot the bill for lawyers' training. To their enormous credit, Iowans made a different calculation. From the 1860s all the way up through the present day, Iowans have covered a share of our students' costs. Of course, you've paid a large share too each time you've written a tuition check, but working Iowans have contributed as well, and so have generations of donors, especially alumni, such as you now are, who recognize the importance of our work. And now here's the question. Why have Iowans made that choice, and why have so many donors joined them? By helping to produce graduates like you, what is in it for them? What are they getting out of the deal? There's many reasons, but the biggest of them all is this. Iowans and other contributors have invested in a very basic but critically important proposition, a proposition that was at the heart of Judge Malloy's remarks to you today. Without law in our individual lives and in our lives with one another, we are lost. President John F. Kennedy put it this way when speaking at a convocation ceremony at Vanderbilt University in May 1963, just 6 months before his assassination. Law is the adhesive force in the cement of society, creating order out of chaos and coherence in place of anarchy. Certain other societies may respect the rule of force. We respect the rule of law. You, my friends, are the latest result of people's financial investment in the rule of law, and it's an investment that will pay off. It will pay off in your commitment to process. When others are ready to pronounce verdicts long before the relevant evidence is in, whether in the court of public opinion or in more formal proceedings, you will be thinking about the fairness of the process by which winners and losers are chosen. It will pay off in your commitment to free expression, reminding those who would like to silence their opponents that our society has made the judgment that the best path forward cannot be discovered unless we're all free to speak our minds, even when others might find it upsetting, and even when some seem to have a penchant for saying the most ridiculous things. It will pay off in your commitment to equality. When others draw distinctions between people for bad reasons, you will see it. And you will remind the distinction drawers about the implications of our common humanity. And it will pay off in your commitment to all of our basic constitutional principles and to the institutions that our state and federal constitutions create. Through all those commitments, you will help fractured communities and a fractured nation work together for the common good. Some today worry that our fractures are approaching those that Americans faced 160 years ago, when Justice George Wright started a law school for his war-weakened son, Thomas. Even if things never get as bad as that, working across fractures of any serious depth is hard work, but you can do it. In fact, you've done a bit of that work even today. Look at these wonderful people sitting behind you. They come from all different walks of life. They are many different colors. They come from many different backgrounds, and their political views and their political heroes are collectively all over the map. Many of those sitting behind you probably liked my reference to President Kennedy a moment ago, while others might have rolled their eyes. But you have brought all these people together this afternoon, and they've come together today united by pride in you, united by a faith in all the good you can do, and united by the belief that the work you will do is work that matters. Through that work that we have trained you to do, you are going to help bring order out of chaos, and you are going to help your communities remain true to basic, honorable principles that are built for the long haul. Graduates, we love you. We're so proud to call you our own. Congratulations, and welcome to the Iowa Law family. Well, the 2025 commencement exercise is now adjourned. We're going to file out in kind of an orderly way, like much as we filed in. So we'd ask for friends and family and loved ones just to stay seated as we do that. And then we have a reception back at the Iowa Law School. Staff have worked really hard to get the place spruced up with some tables and chairs and so forth. So parking's a little tight. Find a place for your car. And then please join us at the Boyd Law Building immediately after the end of the ceremony. Thanks so much to all of you for coming.